Hello,
Hi,
Ashley.
Hello, Ashley. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Nope, sorry. That's not. All right, I will grab all of it. Thank you.
Let me know when we're recording.
We're live now.
Very good. Okay. Thank you all for attending tonight. This is the May 3rd, 2022 Village of New Paltz Planning Board. We have administrative business to cover. Looking for public comments. There are no public hearings tonight. And then we have more than a few applications that we need to walk through. So with that in mind, we are going to get going. Dennis, are you and Rachel there?
Why is Ashley the only one I see?
I don't see Rachel in this.
So you're gonna have to pardon us as we work through a few technical problems. Let me see if I can text Dennis and see if he is available. Still in meeting will be about 20 minutes from Dennis. So that will create is at 7:01 p.m. So he's still got gonna be a while then. And Rachel.
She's supposed to be here.
If we can't get a hold of Rachel, that does create a problem because we will not have enough members for a quorum.
I would recommend just calling her.
Yeah, I just texted her. She's obviously to answer a text.
I have,
Let me call
unfortunately, the screen is loaded. I'll step out. Hold on.
her right now. Says she needs a link to send her a link.
Pardon me.
Isaiah, we're gonna get Autumn to send you a link right now. Okay. So the hybrid issue of having in person and some people who are still online and dialing in is something we've just begun to practice, and so we have not conquered it yet. So we'll need your patience on that. With that in mind, though, this is the first week that we have Ashley Torrey, who is the attorney for the ZBA, is now going to be working as the attorney for the planning board. That I guess we really need to wait for a few moments until we get a link into Rachel and she can climb on.
It's
We just working on this puzzle here. Or?
yeah, that's why I left
Yeah,
it out.
that's what, yeah, exactly. That's why we left it out. We all want to kind of gather around it.
Okay. On that note, there is candy. There is candy. I have coffee candy.
No eating in the library.
It's our space right now. The library very generously let us use this space, and it's good thing we're all gone home.
So we're still waiting for Rachel. Rachel and Bill Murray. Very good. So we now have a quorum and we can proceed. So again, from the top, thank you for attending the 5/3/22 Village of New Paltz Planning Board. We're going to begin with our administrative business. Did members of the board have the opportunity to look at the minutes from the 4/19 meeting?
Yes, it did.
Are there any comments, anything we need to do to make any changes or edits?
No, it looked good to me.
Rachel? And you're on mute.
Give us a thumbs up, Rachel.
You're on mute.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up, okay. So with that in mind, I'd like for a motion to approve the minutes from 19.
So motion.
A second, Rachel, that would be you.
Okay. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So the minutes have been approved. Are there any updates from the Ulster County Planning Board or the Village of New Paltz Board of Trustees or the Environmental Planning Board? I believe you said Bill Murray is on.
Yes.
Bill, do you want anything to add to the conversation?
Not this moment, no update from either board.
Okay, thank you. Then we have some notes from our planning board secretary that I think we want to review. Is that correct?
Briefly. A note about escrow on the accounts. For tier 1 projects at this time, no escrow is required unless it is a type 1 action under seeker. However, the planning board may request that we establish an escrow for you. That'll happen at the meetings or, in concert with you. Tier 2, the escrow is $1,000 to start. Tier 3 applications, $2,000 to start. And that may be increased depending on, how long and complicated the project would appear to be. Hopefully not, but we have to err on the side of caution, obviously. And I will follow up with you as that escrow becomes depleted according to whatever invoices your account accrues, either from a consultant such as one of the attorneys who we're working with, the village engineer, or who else? The people who conduct our traffic studies, for example.
Okay. Thank you. So that concludes our administrative business. The next item on the agenda is public comments. Are there any people here that are here to speak specifically, to have any public comments? No? Are there any online that wish to speak to have public comments? So please raise your hand so that we can make sure that you are included. Okay, seeing none, then we are not going to even open the public comments. There are no public hearings, and so that leads us to the application reviews. The first application is P 2203, 5 Plattekill Avenue. Mr. Keenan. We have gone through many of the issues and items here. We do have a draft motion to approve the application. And the ZBA variance was granted, the windows were put in. I think the one issue you still have remaining is with that back wall, is that correct?
Correct. We need to go to the ZBA to get them to approve removing the wall completely.
Okay. Ashley, do we want to wait to do a motion to approve the application, or do we want to have that contingent on getting the approval from the ZBA?
So at the last meeting, you did vote to recommend that they go to the ZBA for that reconstruction of that wall. And the way you were going to do it, it's not the standard type. If it was a variance, then you'd have to wait until that was granted before you could act, because it wouldn't be in compliant with the zoning. But here, all they're seeking to do, and Andy, please correct me if I'm wrong, was to reconstruct this existing non-conforming wall. So it's not going to change the site plan at all. So you could approve the resolution as is, and then they could go to the ZBA. If they get that authorization, they could just rebuild it. If not, they just stay status quo as they are.
Okay. We did this once before, didn't we, with another applicant that didn't have
Stewart's
right,
went to the ZBA under the same provision. I can't recall if that's when you were with the ZBA or the planning board, but you definitely would be familiar with that.
Yeah. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for a first off, board, do you have any other comments that need to be made before we move to approving the application?
No, I don't.
None? Okay. So with that in mind, I would like to get a motion to approve the draft, I guess, I need a motion to approve the draft motion for the application.
A motion to approve the resolution of approval.
I'm sorry, approve the resolution. I have it incorrect here. Approve
So
the-
moved.
Second,
I second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
And if I would just ask when you do take votes on resolutions, if Autumn could just do a roll call, that way it's clear in the record.
Very good. So we've got the application then that has been approved. That's it. So we will we'll have it signed up and then ready to go soon.
All right, great. Should we do the roll call?
Well, I mean, we already made the vote, so it would be.
Yeah.
You already voted and it was clear, so just in the, as you move on in the future, you could do the roll call.
Very good, we'll do that. Okay, Mr. Keenan, how's that sound to you?
That sounds great. I just want to take this opportunity to thank the board. You've been wonderful as a business owner and a resident of the village. When people have asked me about the process, I have said the process has been long, but every step of the way, sorry about that. Every step of the way, the board has been forthcoming and really, it's been a great process. So I'm very appreciative to live and have a business in this community.
Thank you, we appreciate that, we're glad in the story, we'll play that back to people that disagree with us.
Have them call me.
Very good.
We'll try not to change it.
Please don't change it, please. All right, thank you very much. So the next issue is PB 2206, 42 South Chestnut Street, Prospect Estates. Gentlemen, how are you?
Hi.
Good to see you again. So just in summary, and we'll have our attorney speak here in just a moment.
Sure.
But just in summary, it's an application for a site plan review to install a new driveway off of Mohawk Road, 27 by 36 foot parking area, which is 6 parking spaces on 10,065 foot square lot located on South Chestnut Street in the R2 residential district. The property is improved an existing 5-bedroom single family dwelling and has a driveway off State Route 32, which will be abandoned as part of the application. Our attorney lists that this under seeker will be a type 2 action. The property is exempt from referral to the Ulster County Planning Board. The residential site that is a type 2 action, provided it meets quality conditions, an increase in parking spaces is not required by local statute. Channelized access to state and or county road exists as proposed. There's not a disturbance of 1 or more acres of land, and there's not a new structure developed in the 100-year floodplain. I'd like to have our attorney kind of lead us through some of the issues that we have here. I know that one of them is that Corey should confirm the new parking spaces are not required. As it was written, it appears that the lot currently has a non-conforming amount of parking spaces, none shown on the site plan here, and the proposed spaces are not being added because of requirement, but because of a desire. Also, the new driveway parking area does not delineate a clear channelized driveway. There needs to be a channelized access to Mohawk Road. So, Ashley, do you want to, before we go to classifying the action and discussing any more, do you want to lead us through some of the issues, please?
Sure. So, and just to jump in on that piece you were just discussing, those first questions are related to the referral to the Ulster County Planning Board. So the exemption under the agreement with Ulster County, it's exempt so long as it meets those conditions you went over. So it wasn't clear to me as far as whether the parking is required to be added by the code, or if it's just something the applicant is seeking to add at this time. And then also the second question of whether there's channelized access, which it looks like from the plan, I did see that it was a clear driveway. It looked like the parking area opening kind of went right up against the road there. So those are things we would need, I think, Corey to weigh in on before you could decide whether or not it needs to go to the Ulster County Planning Board. I don't know if the applicant has anything to add as far as the current parking situation and what's proposed?
Well, there is parking, as you stated before, off South Chestnut Street, which would be abandoned because it's really kind of a dangerous situation. It's really not ideal. And the only thing else I can add about the parking is that the zoning code does require one parking space per bedroom within that zone.
But I guess the question is whether, so how many parking spaces do you have currently?
I believe looks like two. So I mean, it's not delineated or anything, but I would say two off of South Chestnut Street.
So then I guess you're not changing the use of the property at all, though, is that correct?
No, not at all. Not at all.
So typically we're changing the use, adding, a residence or adding another residential unit that would increase under the code, the amount of parking, and that would then trigger the referral to Ulster County. So here you are adding parking, but it seems like it's already non-conforming parking. So I don't know that that would trigger the referral. So that's something we could discuss with the building inspector, how he's viewing that parking situation.
Okay, so let's back up just to make sure that we're clear. You have 5 bedrooms and 1 person, you need 5 spaces, you're adding 6 spaces. So that's 1 more than what is needed. And as a result of that, is that what you're telling me, Ashley? That as a result of that, then it needs to be referred to the Ulster County Planning Board?
Yeah, if that increase is something that's required by the code, and typically if they already have 5 bedrooms and they're non-conforming parking, then typically they wouldn't have to increase that parking under the code because they'd be entitled to have that grandfathered in. But that's the question we need to figure out. And then also the channelized access question as well. There were two issues with the Ulster County referral that weren't clear to me.
Well, we would be willing to reduce down to 5 parking spaces if that's more acceptable. The reason why we had done it the way we did was just because we were going with stacked layout, and it's 6 just was a more even number to make the paving system work out in more congruent manner. So.
Yeah, I think it's more just a question of whether it has to go to the county, whether or not, this board wants the 6 spaces or wants to limit it to the 5. That's a separate
Just want to let you know
separate issue.
we're that.
Okay. Let me just make some notes here so I can share.
Just let me know if I should continue or if you want to finish your notes first, Chairman.
Let me finish my notes and
I'm sorry, I didn't get your names. Sam, I know you, but I
So, Lee Frizell, the architect.
highly
Yes.
Thank you.
so as 5 are required, this addition of 3, and we're not going to use the current space, that triggers it needing to go to the Ulster County Planning Board if Corey agrees. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement.
So we need to have Corey weigh in on this.
And there's the 2 potential triggers to go to Ulster. It's the parking, but also the channelized access, and whether that driveway as shown is a channelized access to the existing road there, Mohonk Road.
Okay. So really, what we also we need to have Corey confirm the applicant's lot coverage calculations. I believe you noted. Is that correct?
Yes, there were a few things as far as the bulk table. It showed some non-conforming setbacks, and I'm trying to recall if I think the coverage was also a question. So those are things that we'll be looking for the building inspector to confirm, and just if they're pre-existing legal non-conforming, then nothing changes. But if there's something that require a variance, that would have to be sending the applicant to the zoning board to get the variance.
Right. Well, just give me 1 second. Anything that's existing here is pre-existing, so
Right.
we're not encroaching we're not building any new structure or anything within or outside of the setbacks, I should say.
So there's a
True.
difference between something that's pre-existing and something that's a legal pre-existing nonconformity. So if it was in place before the zoning restriction that it now doesn't comply with was enacted, that typically could continue. But if, for example, if someone built a structure illegally that it's pre-existing, but it's not actually legal, that's that wouldn't be entitled to that same continuation. So it's just the building inspector to look at the records and confirm.
So what we need then is we need to have a zoning review, a zoning code review by Corey. We need him to weigh in on the driveway issues, the requirement and whether to trigger it. We need to get him to weigh in on the coverage, the bulk table issues, driveway width, and then we can make a decision as to whether it's going to be referred to the Ulster County Planning Board. We kind of have to wait for him before we can do anything.
Just to let you know, guys, he did look at it, him and Blue.
Mhm.
They came into the site and looked at it and he confirmed the coverage.
But we don't have anything in writing.
I understand, just to let you know. And the reason we go with the driveway of Mohawk, it's just too dangerous for those kids to back into Route 32.
Mhm.
And if they park at Mohawk, which is a dead end road, they've been getting tickets
Mhm.
because they're parking overnight. And also when it's snowing, they have nowhere to go with their
Right.
cars.
I noticed also there was a remark not to block the driveway because they had the trash receptacles there. So yeah, I understand it is an issue, but we've got to wait till Corey comes back with us to do that. I would suggest that you reach out to him. He tends to have quite a lot to do, and so frequent gentle reminders are probably going to get you at least a response
Right.
more rapidly than it.
Unfortunately, we've already had a bit of a dialogue with him on this, so I'll reach out to him and
Sure.
see whatever else he needs to complete his review.
John, if Autumn could also share my comments with Corey, and that way he could see what the specific issues are that we're looking for guidance on.
Thank you. I think that's a good idea.
Autumn, are you able to do that?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
So as far as for purposes of tonight for this application, you can classify the action as type 2 under seeker.
Okay. That is kind of the last thing to do here. So I'd like to get a motion to classify this as a type 2 under seeker.
So motions.
Second. Rachel's waving her hand. All in favor? We're going to have Autumn do a roll call vote now.
I think that's just for approvals.
Just for approvals or for everything, actually.
I mean, it depends, but generally for approvals, or if it was a bigger
Okay.
type of approval. So it's
We'll
fine to
leave-
just do all in favor.
We'll leave it for approvals. We'll get a roll call, and then for other general items, we'll just do all in favor. So with that in mind, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I saw Rachel move her mouth, but I didn't hear a word. So this application is now classified as a type 2 seeker. And again, we'll have to wait for Corey to get the rest of the information.
Sure.
Okay?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. So the next application is PB 2207, 1-3 Platicille Avenue. Nassim. Good. You guys can go ahead and just have a seat there.
There's a few more chairs.
Brief summary is that it's application for special use permit to establish a 450 square foot retail smoke shop use in a vacant commercial space on a 0.14 acre lot located along Platicille Avenue. That's one that's between Starbucks and McGillicuddy's. For Corey's 413 memo, the use is retail business not otherwise mentioned. Notes here that it is a seeker type 2 action. There is a referral required, and we'll have to require a public hearing. We're going to actually go through those things, but just out of curiosity, I noticed on the stop work permit and for the other permits that you were looking that are all posted there, that you were going to be replacing some load-bearing walls with steel. Is that correct?
No, that's like we keep in the building as is.
As is, okay.
As is. That's I think that was done. Landlord had done it already.
Okay, that may have been what generated the stop work. Got it. Okay. So, why don't you give us a little description, and then we're going to allow our attorney to go through some of the issues here, and then look at the special use permit part 5 that you completed. We'll look at classifying it and determine if there's sufficient information to set a public hearing. We'll discuss the escrow amount. So go right ahead. Tell us what you're gonna do.
Well, pretty much we focus on hemp CBD product. It's because we heard that there was another smoke shop in the area and they got shut down because they had a sloppy shop, So we have everything uptight, modern, interior design as far as the whole vision for the shop. We have multiple other locations in the city. So we pretty much bringing out, a modern scale. We want to bring a modern scale smoke shop in the village.
No, and also I would love to add that even as a kid, my first subject was global history. And I understand this is a historic town, keeping that in mind. That's why we decided to keep the building as is, so we don't change anything from the other side. Only thing we're gonna do obviously is interior. We painted already, but the city, we want to bring the city, all the city vibe into new class. But as long as we're not touching any of the historic part of the town as well, we keeping that as our priority number 1. Because before we took over that location, there was also a house, I believe, down the block on the right, never familiar with the street name. There was a one-way house back in the days. And one-way house, right?
Yeah, one-way
We sat down with the owner, I mean the landlord, and he was telling us all about it. We were initially planning on taking that over, but we understood how much we're gonna be changing on the inside. We was like, instead we'd rather wait and find another location than to touch this building. So we decided to back off from there, and then later this opportunity came up and we decided to proceed forward.
Okay.
So is this strictly retail? People come in, buy the product and leave? There's not like
no lounge, no.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
No lounge. People just come in and out and go.
Okay.
We also
cigar humidor.
Cigars, like, you guys ever heard of exotic drinks and chips?
Yes, that's
exotic drinks.
Yes, so basically that's the thing that we're bringing from New York City. This is a new trend. Basically, if you eat Cheetos, there's flavors that are not accessible everywhere. They come from California and stuff like that. And there's drinks like Fanta, you drink coconut. There's flavors that are not common in New York City, so they characterize those as exotic drinks. So you want to bring all of that around you.
Okay.
From different state, different country. Some of the chips, soda, even from Japan.
Okay.
And what do you anticipate? What do you want your business hours to be?
Business hours, whatever is
usually
the community.
Usually it's like 10 to 10, but I see that this town has like a big Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. They open up late. There's 2 bars around here, so we're trying to fit the time over with it too.
Whatever is fine with the community, work with those hours.
We need to work with the community too.
Okay. There will when you go into the retail space, there will be some requirements in terms of hours, so they'll find out more information about that. Any other questions, Rachel? Any questions for the group here? You're on once again. You're on mute. You don't know what to do. Okay.
She was unmuted before. I don't know what happened.
You were unmuted previously, so.
Well, if you'd like to text us or send a message in the chat, we can relay your question.
Maybe to unmute it.
Okay.
You didn't mute. There we go.
There we go.
I got it.
There we go. You're
My
live.
question was, this is shop, it's in the same building as Aerial Dental?
Yes.
Same building,
Yes,
so
right?
it's not even separate, it's like a little section of that Aerial Dental building.
Correct.
And I'm sorry, what you're selling drinks and chips? And is that what you said? Right,
Smoke shop.
smoke shop. Okay,
Yeah, convenience smoke shop. So we're going to have drinks, sodas, chips, candies. Yes, we're gonna have that as well.
We're
okay,
mainly focused on CBD hemp.
okay. Okay.
All right, Ashley, you want to walk through some of the issues with us now?
Sure. So as far as seeker, I think you mentioned it is a type 2 action under seeker. It does not require to be referral to the Ulster County Planning Board. It's exempt under the agreement as reuse of an existing structure. A public hearing is required because it's a special use permit. So a couple questions I had. The floor plan is labeled existing floor plan, but it's showing the smoke shop. So it seems like it's the proposed floor plan. If that's correct, it just needs to be modified to have the correct description. The existing front elevation shows an existing sign. So if a new sign is going to be proposed for the new use, then a detail should be submitted showing it complies with the sign regulations. The applicant has requested a waiver of site plan requirements pursuant to 21239A2, which provides that except as limited under another section, which is not applicable here. The application for special use permits shall contain the same information required for site plan review under subsection A of 21213 unless waived by the planning board. There's no standard. You've addressed you've done these previously. I think recently you had another applicant had requested a waiver because it was an existing, they weren't changing the site at all. They requested to waive those other site plan elements that would typically be required because they weren't proposing any changes to the actual site. And my last comment was, I believe Corey was going to be doing a zoning code review as well. I'm not sure whether there'll be anything else he identifies that needs to happen.
Okay. So you're asking for a waiver of the site plan. And you're going to be required to give all the information that's in a site plan. So because you're not making any changes, but you're still going to have to give all this information, why would you not want to go ahead with the site plan?
We actually, what Corey had told us is just have the floor plan ready. We never talked about any site plan, honestly.
Okay. Normally the process is that you would put together a site plan for your space, detailing what work you're going to do, giving the elevations, showing some more technical information about the sign, which you spoke about earlier. And all this would be collected, and then you would have an architect or an engineer like Andy Willingham, who was here earlier, or one of the other gentlemen that are sitting behind you, that would produce these drawings that say, this is what is going to be done, this is what we're going to need to do in terms of construction.
Pretty much a rendering.
Yeah. And what we are asking.
Or a survey showing, where the parking is, showing what's the actual site layout as opposed to just the floor plan. So the access, the parking, even if nothing is proposed to be changed, you would show what's existing there. That way the planning board could see, is there enough parking, that type of.
As far as we know, we don't have any parking for our location. It's only street parking.
That's part of the process that we'll go through, because you'll have to mention that has to be noted as well. So my suggestion is that because it's a more formal process and it will get you through actually more quickly than without it, that I would get a site plan made for you. It's probably going to cost you some money, but it's going to detail everything, and it's going to help us go through it much more rapidly, because we will have to look at each specific items related to the site plan and go over that with you. And if you don't know what that involves, then that can slow down the process. But if you can take the time, collect it all at one time, put it on the table, that will make it much more easy for us to get to a yes from you, rather than to simply sit here and say, no, you've got to go back and get this information. And it's a special use permit, so we're going to need kind of your narrative about the special use permit. And if you're not unaccustomed to the special use permit, it's in our code and you can read about it. But also, again, if you're working with a professional, they can help you go through that special use permit narrative and tell us why. And again, it'll go a lot more rapidly than if you don't. That's just my experience. And you say that's true?
Yeah, and I think that, if you're really not changing anything on the outside, that site plan, it may look exactly the same as a previous site plan.
Yeah.
But just presenting that to us will help us. And
yeah, it'll give us all of the technical information, details that we need. Go through quickly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Sounds good. We can make that happen.
There are a number of architects in the area and if you need some suggestions and referrals, you can call Autumn and she can give you a list of people who are actively working in the area that can assist you with this. And again, guys, it'll make it go 10 times faster.
Yeah, there are somebody from those dudes.
Yeah.
We would like to be, so they already know what they're actually looking for. We start looking for somebody else. That makes sense.
Exactly. So that's my advice. So I guess what we need to do is then look at classifying this action as a type 2 secret. Did I interrupt you with something, or was it you?
No, that was
okay. And what does this Autumn? What does this meet as far as requirements for an escrow? I think it's the minimal at 500. Is that correct?
That would be for this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's type 2 actions. Technically, it's up to you, whatever the minimum is going to be on this particular application.
We're
500 would be the starting point.
yeah, we're going to go with 500. That's the minimum amount. Give you guys an opportunity to get started on things and try to keep the costs as controlled as possible. So the first thing we're going to do is need a motion to classify this application as a type 2 under seeker.
So motion.
Second.
Second.
Dennis, cool.
Dennis, hello, Dennis.
Hi.
All in favor?
Aye.
So it is now classified as a type 2 action. We're going to wait to set the public hearing until you come back with the site plan. But again, that's something that can move very rapidly. It's not perfunctory, but people may show up and say, I don't like it, I don't like it. But it's part of the process, and having a site plan will again make that much more easy for everybody. Okay. So give her a call in the morning. That's what you got to do, is give her a call so she can give you information about architects and engineers that can help her with this. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
And just also a motion to set the escrow for $500.
Oh, we did. That's right. Okay. So we need a motion then to set the escrow at $500. My apologies.
So motion.
Second. Rachel seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Dennis?
Aye.
Okay, there we go. So your escrow is set. You've got your task, you know what you need to do, and off you run. Okay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So thank you for catching that. The next application is PB 20-08-6466 Plains Road, Discovery Institute. Welcome back. Come on right up here and have a seat.
Good, how are you?
Good, hi. Good.
All right, I think I'll just put up.
Yeah. So, wait till it's back here, so make sure you all know. Yeah, I know. I couldn't open that PDF either. I have to download a specific type of PDF player. So we'll make a note to Autumn to see if we can. If you don't have it, I don't have it.
I think, I mean, I can see if it works with my.
It doesn't work with Adobe.
Oh, it doesn't?
I couldn't get it working.
Oh, okay. I don't know, mine seems like it's kind of working, but this is weird. This is just a email.
Paper emails?
Well, actually, no, we're looking for is, the site plan, those other things. The PDFs are requiring a specific type of PDF reader, which is not something we all have downloaded. But what we may not need it just tonight, so let's hold on for just a second here.
You want me to pull it up on my laptop and share my screen?
That would be wonderful because it will then appear up on the big screen. So you have been here before.
About a year ago.
And prior to that as well, I remember. So what we want to do is we want to have you give us a description of what you're looking to do, what you have done so far, and then we will have our attorney who's looked over the application and has some suggestions for you and some things that do need to be done. And then we will kind of set a task list for you and then give you a bit of a timetable as to when, based upon those tasks, we can get you back in here and go and move forward on it, okay? Okay. So, sorry, I'm very task oriented, so just bear with me. All right, Ashley, you got that? Can you enlarge that screen by chance? Good. So why don't you guys tell us what you're looking to do and give us the narrative, because I don't believe that Dennis may have been on the board at that time, but I'm not certain that everyone else has had the opportunity to understand what you're looking to do.
Okay. Well, Discovery Institute is interested in subdividing a certain portion of its property in order to sell a dwelling that's on there so that we can satisfy an outstanding debt that we've had going for the last 8 years. In the past, we've had other people who were part of the Institute, who are still in the Institute, buy certain portions of the property on Plains, on Da Vinci Way, so that there are now 5 households that were not there before that are now upstanding, tax-paying people. It's very complicated when you look at the map, but that's part of the problem. There are some issues about the shared septic system, et cetera, and boundary lines. So on paper, it looks pretty daunting. But I have to tell you that if you came and took a look at the property, came down Da Vinci Way or down Plains Road and took a look at Discovery property, it's a beautiful piece of property.
Yes, it is.
And the community back there is a wonderful established community of very good people. So the woman that wants to buy that house is here. This is Anita Falcone. She's presently a student at the Discovery Institute and wants to be closer to the activities that are happening there. And she just sold her house in Montgomery and just presently living in that house that we were talking about subdividing.
Okay.
So last year you gave us about 15 questions that we were tasked to answer.
Correct.
And we've been doing coming up with answers to those questions that you can entertain. And if you have more questions for us, we're happy to take them.
Okay. So the summary is that this is an application to subdivide an existing 5.7 acre lot into 2 lots. Properties improved with various structures, including 4 detached dwellings, 3 of which will be on proposed lot 1, and 1 will be on proposed lot 2. The property is located in R2 residential district. We waived the preliminary plat requirements back in September of 2020. as noted in the code section. It is an unlisted action. Planning board agreed to do an uncoordinated review at the April 6, 21 meeting. And so now, actually, if you want to, it says the referral is exempt under the agreement with Ulster County Planning Board as a subdivision of fewer than 5 lots and no access roads or structures not located in 100-year floodplain. However, because it's within 500 feet of the town boundary, a notice of the public hearing must go to the town clerk electronically at least 10 days prior to the hearing. But we're not there yet. So, actually, you want to walk through the issues, and we can look at the the plan that's on the screen here. And
Can everyone see the plan?
yes, we can.
Okay, great. And then I could kind of point out too when I'm discussing certain issues. So we did get the applicant's response to the comments from last April. So some of them have been addressed, some of them are partly addressed, but we'll go through that. But I think there's definitely some progress that's been made. So the first item is their applicants relying on, they say, an existing easement over Da Vinci Way, which is over here, to get access to this lot 2, which comes down here and then over to the parking area. So they did provide a driveway easement, but that was a different easement than what was referenced in the site plan note. There was a different book and page number. It's note 8. So I just want to make sure we have the right easement. So this note says it was recorded in Lieber 3350, page 77, but the version that was provided was a different book and page number. So if you could just confirm that. And then also the agreement that was provided didn't include the SPL that's the subject of this application. And I don't know if that's because I know there was prior subdivisions and perhaps it's referring to an older SPL, but I just wanted to get some clarity on that to make sure that the easement does in fact give this lot access.
And actually, would you run your cursor over the lot so we can all make sure that we are looking at the same thing?
Or so this is lot 2 that I'm speaking of here, where it's getting the access over from Da Vinci Way, coming this way, and then the access is over here. And is that currently how they get access?
Yes.
Okay, so we just need to get a copy of the correct easement and confirm that applies to this property. And also, if you could show whether by hatching or something to make this clear, showing the bounds of that easement. If you could, cross hatching or in some way show and delineate the actual bounds of the easement. I don't know if it's the whole entire paved way or what. There was a shared sewer agreement, so that is required for the shared septic. So that's going to need to be reviewed. I believe it was requested by the DPW and the village engineer. So they should get that just to see if they have any comments. There should also be a meets and bounds description of the easement area. I didn't see that included in the easement agreement. And also, just as a general matter, that agreement, I didn't review it in detail, but myself or the village attorney would need to review and sign off on that form. So the next item, there was like a couple of inconsistencies regarding what the current uses are. So over here you have just find it. You had some notes. Here we are, the lot uses. So again, there's a few houses on the properties. So I believe in your response to the comment, you had said that there was a 2-family home there was 1 and 2 family homes on lot 1. But this doesn't identify any 2-family home that's located on lot 1. It does refer to a 2-apartment residence on lot 2. But then it also has this statement down here that all residents are single family. So I guess the question is, you have these four houses, are they all single family homes, or which, if any, are two family?
Want an answer now?
I mean, if you can now, but I mean, it'll have to also just be corrected on the plan, whatever, if it's something different
Yeah.
than what's here. So are the three on lot one all single family, and then the one on lot two a two family?
No, the main residence is a two-family.
Okay, so house four.
Yeah,
So then that should, in your description up here where you have house four, add a sentence saying, clarifying that main residence is a two-family.
okay.
And then also take out this statement at the end that says all residences shown are single family, because that's not accurate. So I think the easiest way would be, you say house two is a studio apartment, that's clear. House three, you should say it's a 3-bedroom, single family residence. House four, it's a 2-family. You should set forth however many bedrooms are in that main residence, because that is how parking is calculated. And then for lot two, it's a 2-family or 2-apartment. Okay. Moving on to this shed over here on lot one, it looks like, unless it's a legal pre-existing nonconformity, which we need the building inspector to weigh in on. Unless it is a legal pre-existing nonconformity, it's right up against the property line there, and that would require a variance or would have to be removed. And I also don't see the dimension shown here, but there is also a minimum distance between accessory structures and primary. So you should check this dimension and add that in, because it looks pretty narrow there. Okay, there's another shed on lot one. And that's right over here. And that's showing that it's 10 feet from the side lot line. But the requirement in the code, it's section 212.20 sub 3. I think I'm missing a letter actually there, but it's 212.20, and it requires that no accessory building can be located closer than 12 feet or a distance equal to the height. So this has to be, assuming it's less than 12 feet tall, it has to be at least 12 feet from that side lot line. So it's not complying. We'll need the, this can't be a pre-existing nonconformity because you're adding this lot line. So either if you could modify that lot line to get it complying, or move or remove the shed. And if you have any questions, please, jump in as I'm going through, that way.
And this is a review, and we will have all of these collected and not detailed, so that you'll have something to reference.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So we had previously requested that this lot line over here be reconfigured so that you don't have this encroachment. Right now, you're showing this concrete patio. It's mostly on what would be lot 2, but a portion encroaches onto lot 1. As a general planning matter, the planning board never wants to approve encroachment. Sometimes, they happen and they're pre-existing, but here the lot line could be reconfigured so that you don't have that encroachment there.
Well, we've added a note about the encroachments. It's
Yeah, I understand there's a note but the note says, let me just go to it. Yeah, it says that the encroachments aren't being approved, but you're showing an encroachment and you're asking for the plan to be approved. So we had asked for that note because there's an existing fence over here. This fence that encroaches from this lot 16.210 onto what will be lot 1. So we wanted the note to specify that this fence that's existing, nothing the planning board is approving as part of this application is approving that. So that's, whether that is approved or why that's there. That's nothing the planning board's addressing as part of this application. This is a separate issue where you're now going to be creating a new encroachment, and there's really no need to have this lot line. You could just jag it up here so that you don't have this patio partly on lot one, unless there's a reason that you wanted it this way.
The patio continues to the northeast there, so it's, and, you know, there's a retaining wall there. It's really, there's no place for it to go. It's going to be the encroachment.
But can you move the lot line so that it covers?
Yeah, we're
that?
talking about removing the lot line, which is,
The line to cover it.
you know, an imaginary theoretical line here, just that divides the lot. So we're not
asking you to take down the patio or the retaining wall. Just redraw the line.
So what here, I think you label P2 as this line right here. Can you move that over? What is this, to the northeast, or
Yeah.
move it closer to this pad here? That way you don't have that encroachment.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And also, I mean, when you do that, it will likely require a variance because it's going to be right up against the side lot line. So once you redraw the lot line, you could figure out with the building inspector what side yard variances might be required. You might need one for both lots. I don't know what it's going to look like. Okay. We previously requested a copy of the utility easement, which I believe you said you'd be providing, and also if you could delineate it on the plan. I think you show the utility poles, but not the meets and bounds of the actual easement. Okay, moving, we had talked a little bit about this map note number 16. So this should only identify what encroachments, again, are existing previously, nothing that's new that's being added. So I think it would just be the fence. That's the only item that I believe is an existing encroachment. Is that correct? Because the wall and the patio, we're dealing with the issue we just spoke about. So this note, you would just modify it after you redraw that lot line, modify it to just say that the fence and any encroachments shown are not being approved by the planning board.
Do you want the note changed?
Well, because you're going to be, so when you're talking about the wall and the patio encroachments, is that the area we just spoke about where you're going to be redrawing the line? Is that over here?
My understanding was that it was referring to the fence that is also crossing at 90 degrees there, just to the north of the concrete patio. And so that fence is straddling the property line.
Yeah, so.
Well, the fence on the top of the wall.
Right from the one.
Yeah, so there's no, is that there a purpose to that fence? Because these properties are no longer going to be in the same ownership, and thinking in the future, if they change hands, you might have neighbors that are friendly with one another now, but in the future, might not always be that way. So it's difficult when you have encroachments like this. You need to then set forth who's going to be responsible for the maintenance of the fence. Do you need that fence? Or if you can't redraw the lot line to get rid of the encroachment, then it's just something to think about whether you want to keep it, or can you perhaps relocate it all on one of the lots maybe.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we
Yes.
understand.
Yeah.
Okay, so that note then should only be, referring to whatever encroachments are going to be existing. I think This one I had mentioned before, that's something that's not part of this application. This area should be cleaned up so that there's no encroachments. Moving on. The parking spaces on lot 2 are numbered, but the parking. I'm sorry. Yeah, the parking on lot 2 is numbered, but the parking spots on lot 1 over here, it looks like there's 6 of them, but those should be numbered as well.
That's part of a previously approved site plan.
I understand that, but it should be,
Numbered?
you should have, you know, shown here how many parking spaces there are, because are these all existing, both the ones shown here on lot, what will be lot 1, and then the ones that will be on lot 2, these are all existing currently?
Yes.
So you're now taking what was parking on this larger lot that had all of the residences, you're moving 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces onto lot 2. So we need to know what the parking requirements are. And now, because you're splitting the lot, whether, you know, what they are for each lot, what's existing and what's going to be proposed as a result of the subdivision. So typically this is shown like you have a bulk table, just a parking calculation table showing you need X amount of spaces on lot 1 for the different structures on that lot and X amount on lot 2. And then if anything is, you know, not compliant, then whether it's something that is pre-existing as determined by the building inspector, or if it's something that needs a variance because you're reducing the amount that's currently on the lot 1 portion. And my last comment was just asking that the building inspector do a zoning code review to address the parking areas, if they're legal pre-existing, don't need any variances, and also the setback issues and the other items we discussed, because these parking areas are right up against the lot line here. And I think this one is as well. And there is a provision in the code that says required parking spaces in residential districts has to be on a buildable portion of the lot, and that it can't be in any required yard or open space except for in an established driveway. So again, I understand there's existing development, so it's just a matter of having the building inspector review and say whether this is legal as is, or if any type of relief from the zoning board is required as a result of the subdivision. And I know that was a mouthful, and I can put together kind of a bullet point list to share with the applicant if that will be helpful.
That would be immensely helpful. Because what we wanted to do is we wanted to just tonight do a review. We've got a couple of things we need to take care of administratively. We wanted to get you at least what our view is of the remaining points. We're going to get you a task list. She's going to produce that. We'll go through Autumn, and you can reach out to Autumn and she'll take care of getting that to you. And then that will give you some bullet points that you can just go through and check off as you get them done. And that way we can move you forward. So it's been a while for both of us, so I understand entirely. The point is that we want to get you. We want you to get this done, and we're going to try to help you as much as we can. Thank you. So with that in mind, there's several things we need to do administratively. I think let's go up here and look. We need to authorize our planning board attorney to prepare the SEAF Part 2. FEAF, I'm sorry, Part 2. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what we need to do at this point.
Yes, I think that's the only action you really could take tonight would be to authorize me to prepare, and I believe it was a short environmental assessment form that was used for this application to prepare the SEAF Part 2. That way, when they come back before you, you should be prepared or able to make a determination of significance under seeker.
once we get to moving here. So with that in mind, I'd like to get a motion to authorize the attorney to prepare the SEAF Part 2.
So motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we have authorized her to do that. That will help us out, and we can come to a determination of significance. You'll have that checklist, and we'll be able to press on.
Great.
Okay,
Okay?
Very good.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely area. I like it. It's nice to look at.
Did you take a walk down?
Well, I actually walk down the rail trail all the time.
Yeah.
So, you get a look at that, and I've gone down the road and seen it before, and so, it's a lovely piece of property. You're fortunate to have it, so.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
very welcome. Thank you. So now we have PB 2201, Woodland Pond Circle. So we have gone through the summary on this before. I think everybody understands what's going on. Unlisted action. We indicated that we will circulate a notice of intent after the applicant identifies the two state agencies with approval authority over the project. Not received much information on this, and so we have not prepared the notice of intent.
I'm sorry, that was provided to you probably multiple weeks ago. We provided you an updated, we've provided all of the information required, an updated SEAF, information about proper ownership. Got confirmation from your secretary that there was no outstanding documents that you needed.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And it's
So
been,
I apologize. I did not see the two state agencies. That's what we were waiting for the notice of intent. So if that was submitted, I did not see that, but I will get that and get the notice of intent out with that information.
so does that delay anything in this process?
Well, the board won't be able to make a determination of significance until they could establish lead agency, which needs to be based on that notice of intent. So was this in an email you had sent it, or?
Yeah, it was sent and Autumn confirmed she received it.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess the question I'm asking is, in terms of, I know once you send it out, they have 30 days to respond.
Right.
That's correct.
Can we proceed with other things like the public hearing and which, if we did that in 30 days as well?
Yeah, I think you could go through and see what other information the board might need in order to make a determination of significance. So anticipating that we'll get that notice out, and then the agencies I anticipate are not going to be objecting. The board can still proceed looking at the environmental issues, although they won't be lead agency until that 30 days passes. They could still discuss any issues that there might be. So I know at the last meeting, there was discussions about the
So it was the department. Well, so just in terms of the agencies that we needed to add, there was no question that they did not have any role in the environmental review. These are
So
strictly
any
being
agency
added.
that has to give the project an approval of some sort is an involved agency under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. So they simply need to be given notice that the planning board is going to be acting as the lead agency under the Environmental Act, and that's why they have to get the notice of it.
Okay, so we submitted it. If that didn't happen on the planning board side, does this mean that it's going to delay us going to a public hearing?
We just said that it was the board is going to discuss whatever other issues they have, and that we were going to be getting that out. So I can't speak for the board about what else they might need. But again, I did apologize. I did not see that come through. So we'll get that out, and there's nothing preventing the board from continuing its review of the other issues.
Right, it's entirely possible with the transition that something was not.
Okay, anyway, let's move on.
So we can certainly set a public hearing and find the times we can get that going. I think that we have some, let's see here. We have other issues here that we can begin working on and get information so that we don't hold you up any further. For instance, all these you're saying these issues were done. Article 78 indicates there was a finding statement issued in 2005. Determine how the prior environmental review and required mitigations might impact the current project.
We're happy to go through whatever items you have. I think we can address all of them.
Planning board response here.
Autumn, is this site plan that's labeled 2022-03-09, the most recent one?
I believe.
Okay.
That's the most recent copy. That hasn't changed since we started working on this application.
There's only been one.
Yeah, there's only one.
Okay.
So I do note that the Ulster County Planning Board had given some comments on the application about sustainability. I don't believe those were previously discussed at a meeting. If the board wanted to review those with the applicant.
Sure. Yeah, no, we haven't been in the meeting since.
Right.
So I could just read it if that's helpful.
Yeah,
It said,
yeah.
the village and the applicant should look at the ways the proposal is meeting the New York State Stretch Energy Code and actively seek to reduce the carbon footprint of the facility through the use of alternatives to fossil fuels, such as passive solar and geothermal heating, use of heat pumps. The Ulster County Planning Board also recommends that the infrastructure necessary to develop electric vehicle charging stations should be provided given the growing trend and goals of New York State and the country to reduce automotive emissions. So as with all required modifications by the Ulster County Planning Board, if the board is going to act contrary to them, you would have to do so by a supermajority vote. So that would be a vote of 4 members. And it would need to explain why you chose not to require those.
Were those requirements or were those recommendations? I thought they were requirements.
They're required modifications. So you, in order to act contrary to them, it has to be done by a supermajority vote. I don't know if the applicant has anything, if they've considered any.
We can address those.
Yeah, we're gonna do.
If you would, please.
Yeah, the plan for the duplexes are not finalized yet. The architect's still working on it. But presently, we don't see a problem in meeting the New York Stretch Code.
Okay.
All the things that we have always wanted in the structures, and we're not adding anything to meet the stretch code. They're all things that we wanted to do anyway. So like I say, we haven't finalized the plan, but right now we don't see a problem meeting that code.
So the comments, my understanding is that the comments from the Ulster County Planning Board, the things that they specifically note are not requirements that we have to do. That is, aren't required to put passive solar and geothermal heating in, but they're suggesting those as possibilities for consideration.
Yeah, so the requirement is that you, that the village and the applicant look at ways the proposal is meeting the Stretch Energy Code and actively seek to reduce the carbon footprint. So they do give, I think, some examples that it doesn't say you have to do all these. But
So Tom can give a couple of specific examples.
Right. In other words, like we were always planning on adding facilities for electric vehicle charging. We plan on making the structure all electric. As far as the other things that the code would call for, various installation methods, LED lighting, low flow toilets, low flow plumbing. Those are all things that we had always planned on doing, irregardless.
Right.
So, how exactly we would meet the code right now, I couldn't say because the plan isn't finished. But our architect, Peter Cirillo, feels that that shouldn't be an issue to meet once we finalize the plan.
Okay.
So we do have a number of specific things. Should also point out that the Village of New Paltz currently does not, proper terminology, is not using code officially. So they're waiting, my understanding is from the building inspector, they're waiting for the 2024 or 2025 version of the stretch code to come out, rather than what's currently there, which is, I think, based on 2020. But in any event, this project will incorporate a number of energy saving features, as Tom points out, so that people with electric vehicles will be able to plug in the garage of the cottages, and there'll be high efficiency, heavily insulated buildings and so forth. So we believe that we can meet it without you all having to decide to. So I think we can meet the objectives and the intent of what the county planning board is requesting.
You were saying without
you all having to overrule the, so I think that was the point, is that we can.
So I think it'd be helpful if you can submit something, explaining what those measures are that you discussed tonight and what measures you're going to be implementing, and revise the plans to show, anything that's going to be shown on the plans as a result. So the electric charging station facilities, for example,
we can
make the plan changes. And also I think it'd be helpful to have a narrative kind of explaining your response to this Ulster County comment about the stretch code. I think that's great. You can meet them, just something that the planning board can then have in its record and rely on. Move forward.
So should we not meet the code 100%? That you just want a narrative of what we're doing and why?
Yeah, so it's asking, so if the requirement here is for the planning board to work with you to look at ways that you are meeting it and try to implement these, reduce the carbon footprint. So it's not saying you have to do every single thing, but you need to, the board needs to know what you're doing, and then also revise the plans to show anything that, if you're adding anything as a result of these measures.
Yeah, I think we're very aligned.
Okay, we'll update the floor plan and we'll provide a narrative.
Okay.
Regarding the stretch code. So, and as far as I know, that's the only time the county plan.
Yeah, that's the only one that they had on that. What else we need to look at in discussions here, because we're gonna have to move to get the.
You had comments from your engineer.
I'm trying to find his comments on that. So.
You want to copy?
Yeah, hard copy. Yeah, we have a hard copy.
I could share my screen with those.
And because Dennis did send something over that I read, it's here it is. We've reviewed a few items relative to the application for the addition of the residential units. Specifically, we have looked at the wetland issue and well monitoring issue in relation to the stipulation settlement dated April 2007. Regarding the wetlands issues, paragraph 812 required that the April 2007 wetland boundaries protections be adhered to. Reviewing plans, both a wetland boundary and a conservation easement boundary shown on the plans. The latest submission also shows these boundaries. The proposed construction of the three areas does not violate the 2007 wetland boundary or the conservation area that appears to have been created as a buffer. the buffer is something different than the conservation easement area that is depicted in the site plan, we would need to reevaluate this issue. Are those two the same?
They are the same.
Okay. Well issue, paragraph 3, require testing of certain wells before and after construction. As the present proposal represents a small fraction of the original development plan, we would not expect any impact on area wells as a result of this modest addition to the original site plan. I know that we have suggested possible testing in some of the areas in the well. So Dennis here is saying that he does not anticipate that that would need to be done based upon the small fraction of the original development plan that's going to be used. Any questions or comments on that?
No, I think that's reasonable.
Okay. Applicant will be required to prepare a SWIP for development activity results in land disturbance of 1 acre or more. And you're saying that's going to be 0.9 acres?
That, according to our engineer, it's approximately 9/10 of an acre, yes. And he's discussed it with your engineer.
Okay, if it is,
No.
so the area of disturbance summary should be provided in the plans.
Yeah, I'll confirm. I believe that's already there. I don't have a copy of the plan accessible to me at the moment.
That's fine.
I think we'll confirm that that's there.
Rachel has got a question here. Just one moment, Rachel, and we'll get to you here. Proposed project would add approximately 1,320 gallons per day to the village sanitary sewer system. Says this additional flow keeps the project well within the original flow parameters approved by the village in 2007. So that's Dennis's statement there. Sorry it took me so long to pull it up. Rachel, you have a question or comment?
Yes. Yeah, I do, but I can't. Hi. So the conservation easement, am I still muted?
No.
No, we can hear you.
Okay, so the conservation easement and the buffer, those are two different things. They're not the same thing. I don't know how anybody could think that they are. A buffer is an area of land around a wetland that is necessary in order to maintain the integrity of the wetland. I went over and looked at the site. The sites have already been clear cut and somewhat flattened. They are.
No, they have not. They have not. We've done no work, Rachel.
There's absolutely no.
Wait, everyone.
What?
Hold on.
Okay,
please.
so no, I'm sorry, but you're telling me that you've done no work to the sites at all so far. You
Correct.
haven't cleared them. Okay,
Correct.
so I did take some pictures. I didn't think this was going to be an issue because it's so obvious if you walk over there that the trees and the brush have been cleared and that the area has been flattened with the. Are you?
I saw that as well. A number of trees.
Absolutely not. No, we've never removed nothing.
We removed nothing.
That's not.
Chase,
wait, please.
Chazen dug a pit. They dug test pits, but they didn't do anything. They didn't destroy anything.
Yeah.
There are clearly trees that were taken down and some heavy equipment driven back in there. I wouldn't go as far as to say the sites were cleared, but it's pretty obvious in each of these 3 locations where, the forest was disturbed and
Right.
stuff was taken down.
What do you call that? A bobcat or whatever? It looked like the tracks, like
Yeah.
that it has been flattened, it's mud, the brush has been removed, the trees have been cut down. And you can see the tracks of what do you, I don't know, I guess it's a bobcat, that the equipment was kind of like a little miniature.
So wait, hold on here just a second. Let me summarize here so we can kind of get back to the point. Rachel is saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the buffer and the boundary are 2 different things.
Correct.
And that there has, yeah, thank you. That the wetland boundary and the conservation easement are 2 separate entities, 2 separate things.
Yes.
That's her assertion. Is that true or not true?
So the site. Okay.
It's a yes or no.
to my knowledge, they are the same thing as per the site plan that
Okay,
that was approved originally for
Okay.
this project.
all right.
Correct.
Ashley, if you could just make a note there and let's look at this, see if you can find that information out, and if you can consult with Dennis just to make sure that we're clear on it. I'm not saying it
Right,
is,
so
really,
just-
I just want clarification.
Right. So just to be clear, and we discussed this a couple of meetings ago, on the original site plan, there were no wetland buffers delineated at all.
Right.
So the only delineations that we are incumbent to in this case are the easement. So for a matter of definition, they might have two definitions, but we have to comply with what's on the site plan, and we are.
I understand. I'm just saying with the stipulation settlement, I want to make sure that we are accurate.
Okay, well, so I guess my question is just to try to, so that we're not going over the same territory over and over again. At the previous meeting, the request was that your engineer evaluate the plan, look at the previous plans and make a determination about wetland buffers. And his conclusion, as per his letter to you, is that the proposed construction in the three areas does not violate the 2007 wetland boundary or the conservation area that appears to have been created as a buffer between the wetland and the development.
Okay, thank you for reading that to me.
And
No, I honestly couldn't read it.
no, I don't need to, that's not my point. I'm not reading it just to you. And I don't mean to insult you.
You did.
I apologize. I don't mean to. What I'm trying to do is make a point. The point is that you're asking now for your attorney to go back and talk to the engineer to say again what he has provided to you in this letter.
Yes.
So if I could just jump in there, because you did not go through, there is another point in the engineer's letter that says he looked at the map, discussed the wetland boundary and the conservation easement, but he goes on to say, if the buffer area that was referred to in 2007 is something other than that conservation easement, it might need to be reevaluated. So the situation we're dealing with here, I think, is that none of the present board members were here in 2007 on the board aware of what specifically, the buffer was. I know that it was referenced as being shown on an April 2007 plan, but I haven't been able to locate a plan with that date. I know there is the approved site plan, which theoretically that should show whatever was required, on that April 2007 plan. But I think the village engineer did leave open that if there's something out there that shows there's a different buffer, that would need to be reevaluated. So I think it's just confirming that the easement is in fact the buffer area and that there's not an additional buffer on top of that. And I don't know what else is in the village file. I could work with Autumn I think she had said there's additional hard copies of documents that might be helpful. So we could pick a time to look at what's there and just make sure there's no additional buffer area that's being overlooked.
I just want to make it clear so that we can put this to rest and then move forward. That's what I'm asking for.
Okay, and I just want to be sure that we're not covering ground we already covered that you had. And I, with all due respect, understanding from your secretary and from my personal inspection is that there are no other files that that are relevant to this, that is, are since the settlement in whatever the date was, 2007, there are no documents that show a wetland buffer line on any site plan.
That's correct.
And furthermore, Ashley, the approved site plan from 2007, which was done sort of late April, May, I forget exactly when of that year. I mean, that's what's going to be binding. Anything that preceded that, if a wetland buffer line didn't get transferred to that, I'm not sure what to do because that's not the approved plan. And we're doing, we are trying to meet whatever it is you ask us to do, but the only thing on the site plan and your village engineer has confirm this is there's a conservation easement area identified. And we're staying out of that. And since the village doesn't actually have a wetlands law, and these are federal wetlands, not state, we are doing the best that we can, but I just think that you're looking for something that doesn't exist. So we're just, I mean, our only concern is time. We're not, and we're just trying to make sure that we're not being asked to wait on things that are being done over and over again, that we feel may have been addressed by your engineer here. So that's all.
Thank you. So let's look and see if we can get this clarified and get some clarity on it. Yes.
If I could add something about the hard
Please.
copy paperwork available, there are multiple boxes of files, not in specific order dating as far back as the beginning of the project.
Mhm.
There are multiple files, some site plans, none of which are, in a particular order. So I could investigate these, but it will require several hours worth of work to piece through anything beyond what's already been presented for signed 2007.
Let's discuss that tomorrow. You can give me a call.
And I guess maybe an easier way to do that too is, now, was Chazen the engineer at the time?
Yes.
So they, if they could go and pull that, April 2007 plan or whatever is referenced in the stipulation of certificate, if they have that available, perhaps that would be a way to.
Yes, we've inquired of them, and they do not have a record of that.
No,
Again, so
yeah, we don't.
It seems, right, Bill is on the phone right now. So it seems that there's a mismatch in the record somewhere, but the final site plan that was approved.
I understand what the
does
final
not
site
delineate.
plan. I understand what the final
wetlands.
site plan shows, and it is on it, but we were referring to the stipulation. So that's the date that was referenced there. And then if it was an error at that point, then if it's not there, I understand that. It's just that was the question here.
So Bill, if you want to just assert to that again, Chazen does not have them, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We looked through our files. I mean, the site plans that we have, match the ones that Autumn provided that were approved. There was no other April 2007 plan that we saw that had any other different information on it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. We'll figure out how to resolve this. Yes.
Yes, well, I just want to say that my concern, as someone who cares about wetlands, I guess the value of which we don't need to discuss right now. Most of us, I think, here understand that, whether or not there's a law or whether there's a line on a map. The great value of that particular wetland, and I guess what I'd like to say is, as far as the building goes, that's one thing. What's more concerning to me is the lawn. If the lawn could be eliminated from the back of that, because it's been, I don't know what you want to call it, cleared right up to the edge of the water where the stream is. I have pictures. I can send you pictures if you don't believe me, or you could go over there and look at it yourself. Maybe they did the work on it and they didn't tell you they did it, but if you go over there and look, you can see it. And I guess I want to commend Woodland Ponds for dedicating one strip of the property, where they're not going to use pesticides and fertilizers in order for it to be safe for people to walk their dogs. And I just wish that could be extended to more of the property, and just as a matter of, concern for the sensitive area that the place was built. I'm not, trying to, delay or change the cottage so much. But what I'm really concerned about is the grounds. And if just the back side there where it is cleared up to the stream, if that could just simply not be turned into lawn, I think that would be it would reduce your carbon footprint as well. And you could put that in your, statement to the county. But I feel like that would provide a kind of buffer, whether it's written out or not. And the reason that, the engineer also said, well, there were people there that they could contact, maybe that would remember or could talk about it. Unfortunately, those people are dead. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. One of the issues that we had just talked about was, some trees that were cut, some area that was disturbed.
They're clear.
I have not been back there. Thank you. Hold on. I have not been back there. I guess what I would like to do is see if there's an opportunity. I can't do it tomorrow, possibly could do it Thursday. To just take a quick tour of that. Maybe one of you could take me back there. Rachel, would you be able to join us, or Jack, would you be able to join us so that we can see the area that they're discussing and see if that's the area that you're discussing?
Sure.
And make sure that we aren't talking about different locations or for different reasons.
Of course. It's it.
But like I said, I would probably be free on tomorrow's Wednesday. I'm not free tomorrow. Thursday, I'm probably free in the afternoon. You're gonna have to give me your card so I can reach out to you and see if we can just go over there, take a look. If you're available, I'll communicate to you on Thursday afternoon.
Sure, yeah, send me a message, but I may not be able to join, and I already went over there, so.
It would be good if you could just help me to identify the location that you were looking at, so I can make sure that we're talking about the same location.
Okay, yeah.
Rachel, would you be available on Thursday afternoon?
I think so, but it's very easy to see. It's very easy to see because
Why don't you send me the pictures, and that way I can use those as a guide when we go out there and locate that area and then come to some understanding on that.
Just a couple comments on that. If there is going to be a site visit, it would, of course, if there's going to be 3 members of the board, that's a quorum. So you won't be able to discuss, the application. You could walk around, the applicant could show you things, but you can't essentially have a meeting out on the property. So if it's 2 of you, it's a different story, but just to keep that in mind.
One of you's got to stay home. Okay. Zach staying home, so
we'll see here.
Send me the photos, send me the information, and I'll go over there and take a look at it, and I'll come to an understanding of where it is. And that way we can get that part good. So with that in mind, we're going to look then at what she can find. If we can't find it, if the boundary area is as stated on the site plan, there's no other issue to it, then we have to rely on that. I'll talk with Ashley about it. The next thing then that we want to do is we want to go ahead and set a date for a public hearing.
If I could just note 2 additional comments. So the applicant did submit a deed that shows the owner of the property is Woodland Pond Inc. I didn't see, and I might have missed it, but if there's an owner's endorsement filled out by Michelle, if it's you, you could sign and just note your role in the corporation. So that's something
I had not done that. I didn't know that was required. I can do so tomorrow.
Yeah, not a problem. We could get you the form for that. The only other item I had was, and Brian, or I'm sorry, Bill, if you're still on, maybe you would have this readily accessible. It looked like the settlement in that Article 78, it talked about a finding statement that was issued in 2005, but I didn't see that in any of the paperwork. I don't know if that's something you or Chazen has a copy of that finding statement, just to make sure there's no issues that are relevant to the areas here.
Okay, I mean, I can take a look to our archives. Is this something that the village would have in their records too, that Autumn might have, or it's not something that they would have retained?
No, it would be, but I know Autumn mentioned that there was quite a few boxes. I thought it might have been easier to locate it on your end. If not,
I can definitely look, yep.
And would you send Autumn a note of the 2 specific things that we want to be looking for so that she can know exactly what we're trying to find?
Certainly.
Thank you. So, Autumn, what would be the next available time for a public hearing?
June 7th.
June 7th? Okay. So I'd like a motion to set public hearing for Woodland Pond EB 2201 for June 7th.
So moved.
A second?
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye. And please note that Dennis is not online right now. So that's where we're gonna go. I will get with you tomorrow once I get a chance to look at my schedule. Again, you gotta card something.
Yeah, that's on my
That's
card,
fine.
so
That works.
contact info.
Can I ask two questions?
Certainly.
And just a clarification. Ashley, a question for you. In terms of noticing for the public hearing, the residents at Woodland Pond don't, the question is, do they have to be noticed because they're not actually property owners? So are they exempt then from notice?
I would need to check as to how the notice requirements are stated, but typically it would be the owners.
Right, okay. I mean, our code says mail notices to all neighboring real property. And then defines them as, being within 200 feet of the boundaries. All right, well, let us know.
So then if it's not, if it doesn't specify, we'll look into that and see. I mean, would that be a problem?
Well, no, it's just 200 people, that's all. Or whatever it is, it's,
350 people that are not owners.
Right, so, I mean, they'll certainly be made aware that there's a public hearing, but it's a question of sending each of them a certified letter.
Okay, and I understand, because it's a certified,
Yeah, it is.
yeah, okay, well, certainly look at that, and maybe if there's,
okay,
a way to ensure they get notice, even if it's not mailed, if it's put in their mailboxes, something.
yeah, and then as far as the process goes now, somebody from Woodland Pond can just talk to Autumn and get a list of all of the necessary property
Yes.
owners and then get the signs from you that post on the property. Okay, and the other thing I wanted to ask you, Mr. Chair, was about parkland and whether that's something, we don't have to talk about it now, but just want to put that on your radar, whether that's going to be a requirement and whether.
That's a very good question, and I don't have an answer to
Okay,
that.
that's fine, thanks. No problem. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
There was, I know that, I think the board was discussing at the last meeting, the critter crossings. I don't know if there was anything else that needed to be addressed with respect to that.
We want to save that, Rachel, or is that something you want to speak to regarding critter crossings?
I don't have anything new to say about them. I think that they, at the time when they were built, they were built injudiciously, and as it is now, they serve more of as an impediment than an aid to animals that need to cross the road in conditions that are completely wet. And the reason they serve as an impediment, I've already said this, I mean, there's like a concrete wall, which if the tunnels were wet enough for the salamanders to walk through, the wall would serve to guide them through the tunnels. But since the tunnels are dry and the salamanders won't walk through them, the concrete walls on either side serve as an impediment, so the salamanders actually have to walk around them to cross the road. That's all. I don't know what if anything we can do about that.
I don't know. What
So I guess the question would be, I mean, those I believe were required as part of the seeker process back in 2007, but whether there's an alternative mitigation or alternative method that the applicant would want to propose to serve that purpose better if this is an issue. It's just something, it doesn't have to be, addressed right now, but something to perhaps think about from an environmental review perspective.
I made a note here. I don't know what can be done. We'll obviously ask you guys if you have ideas that might assist in that. But that's something that we want to continue to think about.
So I guess my comment would be twofold. One is to get clarification from you all whether this is an item that we need to resolve for this application, or whether this is, in other words, is this something that is going to be a requirement for this application that we resolve this issue? And the second thing is whether it is or isn't. There are some people at the Hudson River Estuary Program that I would be happy to talk with.
Would you talk with them and let's see if we can come to something that's voluntary as opposed to being compulsory?
Sure, that's good.
I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, and then that way maybe we can come to a resolution that's easier done.
Okay. Do that.
Thank you very much. I'll give you a call. Tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Okay, PB 2113. Step on up. Let's see here. We have information that's come back from our consultant regarding the traffic. Traffic parking review. Got that. I think Dennis did not get any information back to us. I think he's correct. He said that he wasn't going to have it available until after the meeting occurred. Is that correct? From Dennis? Yeah, I think it's the information. There we go. Yeah. Or I'll just say our village engineer. It's okay. And so that's not going to be available for tonight. So let's take a look here. I think we're all very familiar with the application. Assembly agency reclassify the action. Type 1 action. Village engineer's comments after the village are received. Our attorneys will prepare an FEF part 2, so we're waiting on that.
So if I could just a comment, I think this one I was also, and I again apologize if I had missed it, but I believe we were waiting for some additional funding agencies that needed to be noticed under seeker as well. I know the ZBA consented to the planning board acting as lead agency at their last meeting, but I think there was one or more either state or federal agencies that needed to get noticed, and I'm not sure who those were.
We forwarded that to the village right after the last meeting. It was, we wanted to be notified via email. Was Heather Spitzberg?
Name's not familiar.
She's the director of environmental something or other, HCR.
For the village?
No, for HCR. Housing.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay.
Housing and community renewal.
Okay. All right. What else we need to?
If I could get those, because I do need to prepare the notice to those agencies. So if someone could get me those.
Possibly you get those and send those directly to the attorney.
You want them to go to Ashland?
Yes.
Okay, I think I sent them to the village. I apologize.
No, that's fine. It's just we want to get this cleared and moving. What else you got there? Actually, the bike parking waiver that was requested.
Sure. So I guess there's a question if the applicant could confirm whether they are still seeking the bike parking waiver or not. I think they had requested it back in March. Their plan though doesn't specify if it's still seeking that or if it's going to be complying with that bike parking. If you could update the plan and show what's being provided. I think you show the requirement, but don't set forth what's being provided.
Okay, we're gonna provide it.
Okay, I thought so, but just to make sure on that. Ulster County Planning Board did submit their response comments, and they have some required modifications for this application as well. The first is that a highway work permit from New York State DOT will need to be approved and obtained, and that, of course, would be a condition of any approval of this board. The granting of the variance from the village ZBA is required. They're saying it has to be a condition of approval, but that's something that this board would require before granting any approval. And then the last, it was the same sustainability discussion we had with the prior applicant. So if that's something, Andy, if you could update, any changes to the plans to address that sustainability comment, how it meets the New York State Stretch Energy Code, and give a narrative or letter explaining that so that the board could comply with that requirement as well.
Okay, so we hadn't seen that letter. Can you forward that to us?
To us?
Ulster County Planning Board?
Sorry. And just a point of comment.
Sure.
The Ulster County Planning Board is an advisory board to the community, correct?
Correct.
So they can't require, they can request, just so we're all.
That's partially correct. The Ulster County Planning Board, for certain types of applications that are within 500 feet of certain triggering resources, they have the ability to require the planning board impose certain requirements. The planning board can choose to act contrary to those requirements, but they must do so by a supermajority vote. So the Ulster County Planning Board, it's advisory in a sense, but it also has this ability to have the planning board impose certain requirements or act by 4 members to act contrary to that.
Okay, so we've covered over the bike parking waiver. We've not received comments from the fire department after the review yet, have we?
No, I haven't. I've talked to Corey a couple times, but we haven't got anything in writing.
Okay.
He's really back up.
Yeah. Parking calculation should be revised to add additional space.
Yeah, so most of the comments I had, they were discussed at the last meeting. I think the applicant indicated they were going to be updating the plans and addressing them. It's just there hasn't been another submission in the interim.
Yeah, so the last meeting we were at, I think April 9th, there was a bunch of like minor stuff like that. Where I put some notes. We want to do a full submittal, especially because we knew that the engineer letter was still coming, Ulster County Planning Board was still coming, the traffic engineering, so it wasn't worth doing a whole submittal for really some minor stuff. We wanted to be more efficient. So we had the idea that we thought we were going to keep going on with seeker and the upcoming meetings as we address some of these other letters and reviews coming in.
So as soon as we get the village engineer's comments, we'll modify the plans.
Okay.
Just give you a complete submittal.
Right.
And I just didn't want to do incrementals. Who wants the churn? We did meet with the neighbors.
Okay.
They requested a fence, solid fence, 5-foot height over car headlight height. We walked the property, met with a whole group of them, had a good time.
Okay. Good.
We're very happy.
Good. Glad to hear that.
They were happy we're putting electric car chargers and asked if they could charge their cars, which we said absolutely. So I think we'll address all of their concerns as well.
Okay.
Right. So their main issue was the headlights.
Yeah.
So
they're
we're
pretty
gonna
adamant about that.
Yeah. So we're Keith's agreeing to put a fence.
Solid fence.
4-foot high solid fence to block all anybody that would park and point towards the ridge apartments.
And most of everything in the line with the house, we try to use the reserved parking area. So the primary parking is facing the building. And then we did have some parking toward 32 that I think was not directly going to go in anybody's windows, but some of the other parking was. I just don't mind running a fence down there for them.
Their other main concern was lighting. And I went through the lighting with them, and we had these it took a while to find these fixtures, the ones that cast only toward the parking lot, no backlight. And we're going to put additional shielding on the back of them. belt and suspenders. So I showed them all that and they were happy with that.
Okay. Trying to find my notes from our last meeting.
Andy, you received the traffic engineer's comments, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think there was only a few things that they had asked for revisions, which I presumed you'd do at the same time you address the village engineers once those are.
And Carlito is with us tonight, I believe. Is that correct? There you are.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Carlito.
Hi.
So why don't we go through that, and that way we can push that particular issue and finish it. So your traffic study, you want to go through that with us, or unless actually, are those all the things that you needed to cover immediately that were perhaps left over, bulk table revisions?
Yeah, everything else that I had raised in my memo to the board was previously discussed with the applicant. Those will be addressed in their next submission. They just have been waiting until they had all the other comments from the engineers and.
We're satisfied with that. That's good. Let's go ahead then and you want to lead us through there, Carlito, and I'll pull up my.
Sure. So we reviewed the site plan and the traffic memo prepared by Creighton Manning. Most of our or all of our comments, I think, are very minor or technical in nature, dealing with some additional signing and striping and some turning templates. But as the Ulster County noted, the access improvements will require a DOT highway work permit. So we would just recommend that permit application process in correspondence with the department, the village be copied on anything that's submitted so they're aware of what's going on with that. We recommended adding some sight triangles or sight lines for stopping sight distance, just to confirm that the sight triangles are kept clear of any vertical obstructions. But based upon our review, we don't see an issue with the sight lines. The applicant's traffic engineer did a trip generation analysis utilizing IT data. They determined that it was a very minor generator. Warrant an offsite traffic analysis. We concur with that. And in fact, they were conservative in that they didn't take any credit for the existing commercial use. So if you compared it to that existing use, it's probably at or even below what the current site is generating. Parking, we checked it against IT data as well, and the parking being provided is sufficient. And then the remainder of the comments, like I said, dealt with some signing and striping. We recommended centerline striping at the driveway where it intersects 32, adding a stop sign and stop bar, a crosswalk across the driveway, confirm how the cul-de-sac is going to operate, if it's going to be one-way or two-way, and just sign and stripe it accordingly. Have the truck turning templates that, and Andy, I'm assuming the poorest path is for emergency service vehicle access around the building as well.
No, the poorest path around the back is for a path for recreation for the residents.
Just recreation. It's not intended to be used by fire access or anything around the building.
No, it could be for a small truck, but it would have been just so huge and such a huge amount of paving to try to do that. And
yeah, so then that may make my other comment more of a moot point. I didn't know if you were going to be providing any vehicular access across that, so I was just concerned with how the path interconnected with the sidewalks, where they cross the sidewalks and hit the site driveway.
Okay. So all of these things are just, they're items that you can incorporate. There's no difficulty in it.
No, we don't have any issues with any of that.
Okay. Very good, Carly. Thank you very much for your input. So now knowing that, let's see where our next thing we have to do is steps here. So we looked at the traffic. Let's see, we need an update on the status of the Board of Trustees review.
Sure, so I could speak to that. I think at the last meeting, there was the discussion about how the applicant was previously seeking the density bonus, but now they're actually not subject to a lot of those requirements in the Affordable Housing Village Code because of the funding that they're getting, and everything's going to be affordable. So you had asked us to write to the village board and kind of discuss the alternatives. And Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you're going to be pursuing some modifications from the village board as far as the minimum lot area required per dwelling unit. So it'll have the same effect as the density bonus, but it's just not called a density bonus.
Correct. Right. Yes, that is the plan.
So nothing else. So that's something the applicant will be pursuing. Nothing else as far as this board has to be done for that. I think the only other issue, again, we have to finish seeker, and you have referred this to the ZBA for the height variance. The ZBA has a public hearing, I believe, next week. So the ZBA will be able to hold that public hearing. They won't be able to take any action though until this board completes seeker. So once I get those agencies, I'll get the notice of intent out to the agencies. I'll try to do it tomorrow for this and for the other application as well. And then you'll be able to proceed as lead agency and make a determination of significance. You're waiting for the village engineer's comments, but I don't know if there's anything else you think you need. You already heard from traffic and you've already referred it to your village engineer. I'm not aware of any other issues you would need other information on in order to make that secret determination.
So really what we're waiting for is to get the village engineer's comments so we can get the FEAF done and then.
Yes, I started to prepare the FEAF part 2, so I'll have that, for whatever.
Then we can proceed into
meeting
seeker
their
and
next on, and then.
Just keep tumbling forward here, so.
So we still need to circulate the agency as well. Right.
Okay. So again, we're gonna try to prepare a little task list so that we can know where we are in the process. I know we've got a spreadsheet that's working, so we can get a sense of flow to it. That way we can move forward in a conscious manner and accomplish the goals as quickly as possible.
That's 30 days, right? Once you send out.
Yeah, so if I'm able to get that out tomorrow, then I think you'd be able to come back that June 7th meeting potentially to wrap up seeker and schedule the public hearing.
Yep.
Great.
Anything else you got for us that we need to work with you on, Andy? Any requests from us?
Yeah, I think so. We can keep moving with all whatever comments we get from the engineer as we're waiting to do seeker. Just Carlito's comments. Also kind of planning board and keeping them all.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all. I don't have anything else.
Yeah, Dennis said he was going to he's going to try to have that completed. I think it was this week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was one note on Ashley's memo about a certain code provision about reasonable access to convenience facilities for this use.
Yep.
I mean, I looked at the code and I thought it certainly met that condition, but.
Yeah, I thought we didn't we discuss that last meeting?
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
Oh,
We
okay.
did, and that was one of the things we were going to do.
I'm just gonna add a note to the plan that definitively lays out.
Oh, okay.
That we're,
I
we're
forgot
going to
about that.
accomplish it. I mean, I've got a narrative, but you really want to have a note in the plan saying that we specifically will meet that.
Yeah.
It's not a problem.
Okay.
That was one of my minor things I was going to do. Didn't do a submission for that.
Yeah.
But I have it.
Okay.
It's a great spot for that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, if I could, I just wanted to say, the governor called me the other day.
What did she call you?
She, many things, but wanted to just congratulate the community on Zero Place. And I just wanted to pass that along to the board, because in 30 years, that's the first time that's happened.
That's interesting.
I got a phone call from the governor of the state to say, we're really proud of you. The community really has embraced electrification, you know, and the decarbonization agenda. She also mentioned that we've got this other development to do basically, I can't quite get there under the guidelines of the agency, but we'll certainly get past the stretch code.
Right.
We're going for one tier below net zero with the project, so it'll be good. And I'm gonna go up to the county and make an ask to see if they'll donate some money toward the project specifically to further the decarbonization, and I'll see what they're willing to do. I know they actually helped a project over in Highland recently.
Which one?
Silver Gardens, which is in for funding as well for affordable housing to provide geothermal.
Oh, really?
So if I can get them to provide geothermal, I don't know if we can get enough solar on the roof to have it to quite hit the net zero standard, but I'll come really close.
You know, I was on the planning board the whole time that Zero Place was going through, and I've been on several tours with David looking at the geothermal that he has down there. It was initially placed, and then as it became more and more complex. Really impressive.
Yeah, they did something.
Yeah, they sat down, I sort of was in the basement for an hour doing tech talk, and I finally they're talking with the gentleman who decided.
David kind of geeked out on me for a while, but it's really very fascinating, and
let's all just hope it actually works. I'm like, I hope this works.
We'll know in January.
Well, I was gonna say, it made it this winter. They say when the building's empty, it's more difficult.
Really?
So it went through the past winter without, and he actually said he could have trimmed the well off, which is important because they're trying to get the decarbonization, the net zero costs down.
Right.
That's why they're paying such attention to the construction costs and the design.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating to listen to, but I just wanted to say kudos to the community. And let's hope.
Well, we got this recorded as well, so another kudo in case someone calls me something else. All right. So thank you very much. We'll see you the next meeting. We're trying to get this wrapped up as quickly as possible.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
And with that in mind, the next order of business is a motion to adjourn.
So motions.
All in favor? I have a second, actually.
Yeah.
She's seconding right there. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Ashley, are you available for a call for just a moment here? I know it's 9:15, but.
Sure.
Great.
Good night, all.
Thank you.